Zooey Mama! What's up, everybody? I'm here today to talk about season pass cards and how strong they are on average. Okay, I've seen this notion in some of my comments. I've seen it on Reddit, on Twitter, that Second Dinner, the developers behind Marvel Snap, will purposely release overpowered cards for the season pass, and this would push players to buy the season pass, and that's how they make more money. Okay, now if this is true, which we're going to look into today, this would be very bad. When a season pass card comes out, for the first month, the only way to obtain it is by spending real money. So while this would be good for Second Dinner, it does mean this would be pay to play. Okay, you would have to pay to play the best card or possibly the best deck in the game for that first month. Afterwards, it does move into Series 5. Okay, so after that first month, you can buy the Series Pass card just with collector's tokens, but we're going to look into this, okay? And I see this notion that Second Dinner does release them overpowered, and then later they will nerf it after it's out of the season pass, okay? So they make their money, and then they nerf the card later when it's available for everyone. So we're going to look at the past 12 completed seasons, so all the way up until the March season, where Hope Summers is the season pass card, and we're going to look at every season pass card on release and judge whether I think it's good, overpowered, or underpowered, and maybe too weak and end up getting buffed later. Now a lot of this we can see if Second Dinner does nerf a card, we can kind of assume it was because it was too strong, it was overpowered. If they buff a card, it was because it was too weak. And then there's just a little bit of opinion when it comes to cards that haven't really been touched. So without further ado, let's start looking at these season pass cards, rating them, and then evaluating at the end. So to start off with the April 2023 season, we had the release of Hitmonkey. Hitmonkey now is a 3-cost 2-powered card, but he was released as a 2-0, okay? 2-cost, 0 power, same ability with the on reveal, gain +2 power for each other card you played this turn. And Hitmonkey was nuts, okay? He absolutely took over. Ravonna Renslayer wasn't out at the time yet, so he wasn't getting a discount from her, but he was getting a discount from Sarah. And Sarah decks were just everywhere. You play Sarah turn 5, turn 6, you've got a 1-cost Hitmonkey and a bunch of other stuff. Okay, you could do him in Mr. Negative as well, but it was really just Sarah. You were doing Hitmonkey plus Mysterio plus Bishop, really the same combos you have now, but Hitmonkey was just cheaper, okay? And you still had, Angela going on. Hitmonkey was nuts. Hitmonkey was overpowered, okay? He did need the nerf. It was a pretty big nerf. He still sees a decent amount of play, but not nearly as impactful as he was before. So we are giving Hitmonkey the OP category. Okay, we're starting off with a very, very strong season pass card for April. Next up was the May 2023 season, where we had Nebula as the season pass card. Nebula is still a 1-cost, 1-powered card with the ability that each turn your opponent doesn't play a card here, gain +2 power. She hasn't been changed, okay? Originally she came out and she was very strong. There were a few people, some of the community, complaining about her, saying she was overpowered. Maybe she should get +1 power each time your opponent doesn't play there. Maybe she starts off as a 1-2 or start off as a 1-0 but still get +2 power. There were some talks of that, okay, that maybe she was too strong. And originally I did think she was on the stronger side. She's still a very good card, but she hasn't been changed, and those kind of complaints have gone away, okay? When she did come out, it was the same season as Iron Lad and High Evolutionary, and High Evolutionary was very strong. He took over, and Nebula can work pretty well in the High Evo deck. So I think part of it was that aspect, and there are just some metas where Nebula rises up in popularity and success, and then there are other metas where people are playing a bunch of cards all over the board, and Nebula stocks go down a bit, okay? Especially like with Kitty Pryde. You just play Kitty Pryde on Nebula's lane each turn. So I think she was actually a good level. Again, I do think Nebula is very strong and maybe close to the overpowered side on release, but she never needed to get changed. Next up, we are looking at the June 2023 season, where we had Ghost Spider come out. Now, Ghost Spider was originally released as a 2-cost, 3-powered card, as shown here. She is now a 1-cost, 2-powered card. And that is because she was bad. She was weak. okay? She just wasn't seeing that much play. She came out the same month as Silk and Spider-Ham. Spider-Ham ended up being super strong and got nerfed. Ghost Spider, had some potential. People were excited, but it just didn't come together. She was just too expensive, okay? Move decks don't want expensive cards. The cheaper a card is, the better it is for move, okay? Because you already have your certain cards you're trying to power up, like Multiple Man, Vulture, or Human Torch. So cards that move other cards, you just want to be as cheap as possible. So they did end up bringing Ghost Spider down to a 1/2, and she's still at a good spot. She's not strong, she's decent. If you are playing a move deck, she's just okay. So Ghost Spider, she was bad on release. She was underpowered. People who did get the season pass were actually complaining a bit. They're like, come on, I spent real money on the game and all I got was Ghost Spider. And so she definitely makes the bad category. Next up, we had the July 2023 season and another card that's a bit move themed. We have Phoenix Force. Now, Phoenix Force was originally released as a 5-cost, 6-power card with the same ability that on reveal, she would revive one of your destroyed cards and merge with it, and then that card can move each turn. But there was a caveat, okay? Now, if you do see Phoenix Force, usually you're trying to Phoenix Force your Multiple Man, okay? You kill Multiple Man, you revive it with Phoenix Force, and then you move it around the board a bunch of times to make a bunch of copies. Originally, Phoenix Force, only the original would be able to move. They really brought Phoenix Force cost down because it's now a 4-cost, 5-power card, but they also made the ability better, okay? They had to change 2 things, and it still didn't see a ton of play. It's really that one pretty niche deck. So Phoenix Force, another card in a row where it was just bad, okay? It was really bad. It was worse than Ghost Spider, I think. Phoenix Force might have actually been changed during the season. I think it got changed that quickly. I remember it being really quick because nobody was playing it. This was also the same season that Legion came out, and obviously Legion just took over when he was released. So that's another underpowered season pass card. Then in August, we had Dakin coming out. He still has the same stats. He's a 3-cost, 4-power card with the ability to add the Muramasa Shard to your hand, and that has the same exact ability. So Dakin hasn't changed one bit, okay? He hasn't been nerfed, he hasn't been buffed, but where does he fall? I mean, this one is really kind of up for opinion because he does work with discard or destroy, because the shard, you just need to get rid of it somehow, whether it's discarded or destroyed. It can be destroyed on the board, like with Killmonger. And if it does trigger once, Dakin becomes a 3/8 if you did not buff up his power first, and that's, kind of strong, but you have to work to get 8 power. Okay, you have to work to get a 3/8, and it requires synergy. Unlike a card, now we have Gladiator. You can just put him in a deck, and he's just a 3/8. Or even just some other strong cards that, can produce good power or value on the board and don't require synergy. So I think this one is up for opinion a bit, but I personally think Dakin was underpowered and is still underpowered. Okay, if Dakin got a buff, I would not be surprised. What that buff is, I don't know. Do you make him a 3/5? Do you just make the Muramasa Shard give plus 5 power each time instead of doubling? So that's why if it hits once, he's already now a 3/9. It's already better. What do you do? Because he does see, playing some of these kind of shenanigan discard decks where you try and make a bunch of copies of the shards and then discard all of them and get a huge Dakin, or you work him with the collector. But it's never been very good. It's never been the best discard deck option. It's never been a great destroy deck option. Okay, it's never been meta. Then we get to September. And this is where we get on a very, very slippery slope with season pass cards, because we're going to see the couple after this month. It got crazy towards the end of 2023, okay? All the card releases, there were so many nerfs that came out very quickly because we just had crazy overpowered stuff. Loki was the season pass card. He was a 3-cost, 5-power card on release. He's now a 4-cost, and his ability was slightly different. It did the same thing in a sense, but he replaced your hand with cards from your opponent's starting deck. Still gave them -1 cost, but now his text reads that he transforms your hand. Okay, he no longer powers up the collector. They made that change just so he wouldn't power up the collector, but originally he did. You do Quinjet turn 1, Collector turn 2, Loki turn 3, It was absolutely insanely overpowered. It was the strongest card in the game right on release, like immediately day one, the whole week, the whole month, until he got nerfed. And it took a while. It took Loki a long time to get nerfed. Everybody had been complaining forever, and they were just tired of it. And this was really a big component of players saying that second dinner releases overpowered season pass cards and waits too long to nerf them. Okay, they say, oh, they're just going to wait until Loki's out of that season, and then they're going to nerf him once you can't buy him anymore with real money. And that kind of happened. Okay, he did get nerfed later, and the same month in September, we had Alioth get released and Mobius get released. So it wasn't just that the season pass card was overpowered, it was that basically every card was overpowered, except for Ravonna Renslayer. But Alioth and Mobius both got nerfed, okay? So Loki, yes, insanely OP, and we're going to see the couple months following this are also crazy. Then we come to October, okay? Listen, I mentioned it was a slippery slope. October, we had Elsa Bloodstone released as a 2-cost, 2-powered card, with the ability that if you play another card to fill a location, and that was any location, give it +3 power. Elsa has since been nerfed twice and recently buffed back to having, somewhat a similar-ish level of strength and way she works. So now she's a 3-cost, 3-power card, and she does also give +2 power now instead of +3, but for cards at any location. Okay, when she first got nerfed, it was just so that she only powers up a card at her own location, and they brought that back. This was nuts. Okay, +3 each time from a 2-cost card, and you're doing Kitty Pryde was really strong, and so you'd play Kitty Pryde on Elsa over and over and over. You'd do Jeff and then move Jeff away, Vision, move Vision away. This was another card where she was just absolutely too good, overpowered. She was the best card of her month, but she also did come out in the same month as Nico Minoru, who's very strong, and Werewolf by Night, who got nerfed. And then we get to November 2023, and we just look at that. We have a third insanely powerful season pass card in a row, and Miss Marvel is still probably the last really strong season pass card. Since November, I don't think we've had any season pass card that was nearly as strong as Miss Marvel. So she released as a 4-cost, 5-powered card. She's now only 4-power, with the ability that ongoing adjacent locations where your cards have unique cost have +5 power. Now, she has a similar ability now, but now you need at least 2 cards on those locations. Okay, before you just need 1. So you could just have Professor X in the right lane, just soloing it, and then Miss Marvel in the middle, and you're getting that +5, okay? And Zabu was still an ongoing card, obviously, so he was really good. Miss Marvel basically cost 3. She was a 3/15. It was just nuts, okay? She is, yes, another overpowered card, and again, just 3 months in a row. The player base was really frustrated, right? The community was frustrated. This argument that second dinner is releasing overpowered cards for money, it was just looking true. It really was. You're like, come on, Loki into Elsa into Miss Marvel. Now, Miss Marvel wasn't as crazy as Elsa and Loki, but she was still overtuned, overpowered, and she did end up getting nerfed. Now, what's funny is she got released in the same month as Annihilus, who's also insanely strong, ended up seeing a small nerf. And then Gladiator and Martyr came out that month, and they both got buffed. So every card that came out in November got tweaked in one way or another, okay? Half of them got nerfed, half of them got buffed. Again, balance changes were just not there across the board. It wasn't just the season pass card, it was everything. And then we get into the last month of 2023, December, or as I like to call it, Blob-cember, because Sebastian Shaw was the season pass card, but nobody really cared. Blob came out that month, and Blob was insane. He took over the meta. He was in just about every deck, and it was crazy. Okay, Sebastian Shaw was nothing in comparison, but he was fine. He's the same stats, same ability. He's a 3-cost, 4-powered card. Whenever he powers up, he gains an extra +2 power, whether he's on the board, in your hand, or in your deck. Finally, we get to a point where we have a well-balanced season pass card. He's not overpowered. Definitely was not overpowered. I thought originally maybe he was, a bit on the weaker side, but he's seen some real play now. He's kind of proven that he can be competitive if Surfer is ever at a decent spot. in the meta. So finally we get to a nice point where season pass cards are not overpowered, and Sebastian Shaw is really kicking that off. Come around to the January 2024 season, and we've got Scar. He's still the same 6 cost, 11 powered card that costs 2 less for each of your cards that has 10 or more power on board. He's fine. He wasn't overpowered. He wasn't underpowered. He did add a little bit of value. He's pretty niche. He didn't see play in too many decks, but he was at times. He was in some of the Thanos and Thanos Lockjaw shenanigans. He would see a little bit of play in Hela. And in fact, the January season overall was pretty mild. We had Kyra come out. We had Hercules and Meek come out, and they both got buffed later. So if anything, it was a bit of a weaker season. Okay, we also had Grandmaster and Better Ray Bill. Just nothing crazy. It was actually the first season in I don't know how long that none of the cards got nerfed. To this day, none of the cards that came out in the January season have been nerfed. So Second Dinner, I think they did learn from their late 2023 shenanigans and, missteps that they need to kind of put their foot down, figure it out, and I think they started really figuring it out at the start of this year because they finally started balancing these cards. Okay, if anything, they were a bit too weak, but they really have done a good job starting in January. So Scar definitely goes down as another just average powered card. Okay, you don't need him. If you didn't buy the season pass, you weren't too sad about it. You weren't like, oh man, I missed out on Scar. But if you did buy the season pass, you're like, yeah, I can play him a little bit. He's here and there, can be helpful in a couple decks, see how he does. So it was just a nice power level for a season pass card. Then we get into February where Black Swan was the season pass card, same stats and ability. She was really kind of meant to help out Thanos decks, and the whole season was supposed to be the Black Order cards, and they're all supposed to synergize with Thanos. Black Swan just didn't see play. Okay, you could play her in a little bit of a bounce list or zoo decks, but she just didn't feel needed. Thanos decks didn't really want her. You didn't need her to discount your 1-cost cards, and you're playing them early anyways. The general consensus is that she's just too expensive. Okay, you want her to discount cards. She shouldn't cost 3. Even though she has 5 power and that's good, she should really just be cheaper. And they also did nerf Beast, like right when Black Swan was released. And so that whole Beast and Black Swan, making bounce really good just didn't happen. Okay, it just wasn't insane. And Black Swan was very replaceable. This is another month. February season. None of the cards that were released have been nerfed. Okay, so Second Dinner went from missing like every month at the end of 2023 to actually getting a good string of consistent card release power levels going. And I'll say Black Swan was actually bad. Okay, I do think to this day she's still underpowered. She sees virtually no play, and I think they should buff her. If she got buffed, I would not at all be surprised. I would welcome that. And then we get into the last season I'm covering in this video because it's the last completed season that we've had. It's March with Hope Summers as the season pass card. She's been out for a little while now. She was seeing a good amount of play on release because Thanos decks were insanely powerful. We also had Mockingbird come out, and Thanos did end up getting nerfed. Okay, and since that happened, Mockingbird doesn't see nearly as much play, and neither does Hope Summers. Okay, she's still a 3/4, which seems fine. And after you play a card here, you get +1 energy next turn. And before she came out, I think people did expect that she was going to be nuts and busted. I think when originally data mined, she was giving like +2 energy. It was going to be crazy. But now, I think she's fine. I could kind of see the argument for, borderline OP, but really once Thanos got nerfed and Thanos out of the meta, Hope Summers, it's a lot of work getting a benefit from her. Okay, playing her on turn 3, and then you need to play something on her after, so you really only start ramping on turn 4. It just is a big commitment, and it doesn't have the biggest payoff. Cards like Electro or Corvus, you do start ramping on turn 3, okay, and that's like the good spot for it. So I do think Hope Summers goes down as another fine season pass card. She's definitely not bad, but she didn't come out and annoy the community because she was in every deck and too strong. And I don't see her getting nerfed because I don't think her play rate or win rate is insane. I think she's average. I think she's good. and not amazing, but she's kind of interesting, which is nice and fun for a season pass card. So overall, once we get Hope in here, look at this. At least from how I see it, with these season pass cards, all 12 of them that I've gone through in this video, 4 of them clearly overpowered. What was it? Hitmonkey, Loki, Miss Marvel, Elsa. Undeniably overpowered. Okay, this OP is not less than 4. Those are undeniable. Average, I think it's another 4. And then bad, I have it as 4. But I could see the argument if you do have Dawkins or Black Swan as average power instead of bad. Okay, so you could have it like 4-6-2 here instead of an even 4-4-4 like I have it. It seems like on average, season pass cards are pretty average. Every now and then they're a little too good. Every now and then they're not good enough. But since December of last year with Sebastian Shaw into January, February, and March, we've had some pretty balanced season pass cards. If anything, they've been a bit underwhelming or not very exciting as to what some people were expecting. And again, there's the argument that if people are spending real money for Marvel Snap, they want a good payoff. Okay, you want to spend money for something new, fresh, and exciting. And right now, we're in the April season with Baron Zemo, and he created this mill archetype. And while I know people don't love it because playing against it kind of sucks, it is kind of interesting having a season pass card that really spawns up a new archetype without being overpowered. Okay, I don't think Zemo is overpowered. I think he's going to fall into this average category here. I just didn't want to include it because the season's still going on, and that's just more of my opinion going into it. So that's what I think of season pass cards. I don't think they're purposely overpowered. I think the seasons where they were too good, and they were clearly too good, they weren't the only cards that month. Okay, again, I talked about Alioth, Mobius, some other cards that came out. Second Dinner was just having a really tough time and a lot of misses in terms of balance. Okay, they were just missing the mark on a bunch of cards. It wasn't just the season pass cards. So I personally don't believe that they do purposely make season pass cards overpowered to sell more season passes. I think they try and make them interesting. Maybe, work with a new archetype or style of deck, but keep it at a nice, solid power level. Okay, so let me know your thoughts. Let me know your thoughts on these season pass cards I've ranked. Which one do you think were the best? Was it Loki just clearly the best, or were Hitmonkey or Elsa better? Which season pass cards do you think were the absolute worst on release? And let me know overall, do you agree that season pass cards are just kind of average power or even underwhelming often? Or do you think they are still, on average, stronger than they should be, and that it's bad for free-to-play players? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. And until then, stay positive. We'll see you next time.